Neil Burchill, you have been a nutrition counselor
Yeah.
helping people for 20 years now. You started out in the Navy, you were a firefighter.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of experience, and I think a lot of people have the misconception that when you go to somebody seeking refuge for nutritional stuff, it's because you're fat and lazy and you just want to lose weight.
Right.
And that, I believe, is not the case for a lot of the clients that come to see you. Some are bodybuilders. I mean, some are trying to lose weight and trying to figure out why they're sluggish or dealing with immune issues. So, in your own words, what have you been doing for the last 20 years?
Evolving. Really just trying to navigate the landscape of nutrition in regards to finding out what works for individual people. There's a lot of commonality. People come into me, they're like, Neil, I want to lose weight. And it's like saying, I want to make money. Yeah, but, why? Like, what's the deeper purpose there? And so over 25 years and working with well over 10,000 people, it's just getting to kind of the common things between people. We don't need to lose weight. Okay, what we need to lose is our body fat. What we need is better nutrition. What we need is to promote our health. So the cart's been put before the horse for many, many, many years in regards to, once I lose my weight, I'm going to be fine. And now we're seeing it with, the GLP-1s and things like weight loss is there. Brute force and ignorance. You can lose weight if you're desperate enough. Why can't we sustain it? Why can't we maintain that status of health that losing weight gives us? And a lot of it is it comes at the behest of the body. You're losing muscle mass. And now in geriatric medicine, they're really talking about it. Like this is a hill that I'm probably going to end up dying on, but it's one that's worth dying on. It's muscle mass. It's getting people to, work. In what it is that you do. You go out, you tend to the gardens, you tend to the animals, you're lifting, you're pulling, you're doing all this stuff. So there's you're not going to develop muscle that way. You're going to strengthen the muscle that you have. Okay. Right now we live in a very sedentary society. We make poor food choices, even though, and we'll get into the food quality issue. But right now, I'd like to just focus on the food choices. People don't know how to feed themselves. They don't know how to feed themselves. They don't know what the body needs. They're demanding of the body, but not asking the body what it needs to do in order to fulfill those demands and even sustain those demands. So it's really just been almost 25 years now, Ben, of research. And I find in the last probably 3 to 5 years, I'm getting really close. But it's a hard sell because people are constantly, Neil, why is the scale not moving? I posted an image of one of my clients' arms, mother of two, stays, same weight. And she showed me a picture of her arms flexed and 3 months previous and then up to now. And she hasn't lost any weight on the scale. But you see the difference in her mommy muscle and her energy. She's a teacher. She's a young mother. She's, a wife. And she's seeing all these other metrics. But it took months and months and months to remove her from focusing on just that single metric, the scale.
Was she going to the gym and everything too, or was that just lifestyle
That's a
change?
lot of that's lifestyle. You're
Wow.
carrying kids around. I mean, you're going to develop some muscle. So she's redeveloping the muscle that atrophied from previous poor nutrition. And I see this continuously. Neil, I'm not working out. Why am I not, losing weight in the first 3 months? Well, imagine you got a paycheck or the government sent you a bunch of money or you came into windfall, an inheritance of some sort. And you had a lot of work to do in the house. You had some bills to pay off. So before you started putting an expansion on the house, you'd fix the holes in the roof, right? You'd pay off some debt. And then maybe you'd look at growing or developing even further. This is kind of how the human body works. So once you're balancing those nutritional components, your macros, the big ones, we get so wrapped up in the minutia, we get lost in the weeds. Where did the food come from? And that is important. It's very, very important. But first off, we need to make sure that the body's getting what it needs in order to do what you're asking it to do. Like a currency. I wouldn't care if you handed me a sock full of toonies. As long as it was the agreed upon amount and I could pay my bills with it, I'm good to go. But the more I work with you, the more that I earn your respect, the more consistent I am, then all of a sudden me coming to you and saying, okay, Ben, the socks are great, but can I get, a stack of bills? Like it's just much easier for me to deposit. Absolutely, Neil.
I'm going to push back on that a little bit
Because
because for me, I would say that your micronutrients and focusing on the quality of your macronutrients is very important.
it is very, I'm not undermining that, but I'm saying is in an environment where we don't have access yet.
So are you talking more about over or under eating versus the quality of the food that you're ingesting then?
Exactly.
Okay.
And yeah, exactly. Over and under eating, meaning eating too much of a specific macronutrient that doesn't quite fit who it is you are and what is it you do. So mismanaging your budget. I mean, I could give you brand new $100 bills, organically pressed and all this stuff. But if you misappropriate that food, or sorry, that currency, that money, then you're going to be in trouble. Right? So not knowing how to spend it is a big aspect. So that's what I bring to the table. And then what happens is people start to value people like yourself because they feel better now. And they're like, wow, okay, so it's an organic state of growth. I see it continuously. And then people aren't overwhelmed by foods that are very hard to procure right now, that are very expensive. And but they're not expensive, they're valuable. But once a person starts to get their health and they start exercising, getting their steps, they feel fantastic, they start to look into this stuff. And a lot of them aren't bought and sold on the supplemental aspect of it. They're looking at whole foods. They're looking at how their body absorbs it, the symbiotic evolution behind it, all the minerals and vitamins and enzymes and things like this. So just like someone who you value at work really highly and you pay them very well and you treat them very well, those people are going to climb that corporate ladder. Those people are eventually going to run the company. So it's the same thing. My job is at the introductory level. All right, with the environment that you have, the minefield that we're in right now, how do we navigate this minefield? And then getting them through the minefield and then seeing once they're through the minefield that there's a whole nother aspect of health that they can go to. And then you start the forward motion. Right now, we're sliding backwards. So my job, as a fireman, it wasn't there to make sure that the people were fine months after. It was to get them out of harm's way immediately. So I've really taken that nuance and applied it to this aspect. Okay, this is your budget. This is the food desert that you live in right now. So how can I help you do the best with what you have? My generation, we called it MacGyver. In the military, we called it jerry rig. So this is what you have. How do you make it work? Right? You do it here. It's incredible. You pull in the yard and you see everything that you've got set up. You made that out of necessity. You made that out of things that were accessible, that were affordable. Right? It works.
And given enough money, you can pay for that too. Like you alluded to, like if you had enough money, you could buy a new coach that's going to train you, that's going to every single day going to push you. But to be able to do that, like you said, with what you have or on hand, you're going to the grocery store, not going to an organic food market every day. So for people who don't know, what are the macros that you're pushing and pulling?
So the macros: proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and water. Those are your four. Typically there's three, but I consider water a macronutrient, especially with all the toxins and things like that we're taking in. It's a fantastic way for the body to kind of just keep that system clean, almost like a pot you'd leave outside face up. If you don't drain it every now and again, it festers and stagnates. So by pushing water through your system, water-soluble vitamins and minerals, so even the food that you're getting with the minimal vitamins and minerals that it has, or the synthetic forms of them, you're going to get a little better absorption out of that. But again, and it just leads you down that path. It starts to progress you.
What would your definition of toxins be?
Anything that the body that doesn't serve the body in a beneficial way. So they could be artificial, it could be man-made, it could be environmental. It just depends on your physiology, your microbiome. So, it could be a mold, which is naturally occurring. It could be a spray or coating on a specific food item. Yeah.
Because I feel like, especially now with so much information and so much access to information, people are really struggling with, I'm a huge proponent of natural medicine and nutrition. And when you get into the weeds talking about, like you alluded to, GLP-1, Ozempic, and when you get talking about toxins and things, that people get kind of scared, or everybody sort of goes down this rabbit hole of like, oh, everything's a toxin. You're talking about chemicals, right? And there's such a misnomer when it comes to chemicals or toxins. So when people don't understand their body and how their gut microbiome, like a lot of people are scared of bacteria, and you have bacteria living all over your body and in your body, and that's a very important part of your digestion. And do you push probiotics at all?
Typically, no. Prebiotics, I have a tendency to push a little bit more.
What are prebiotics?
Prebiotics help kind of facilitate the replication of indigenous microbiome. Okay, so diversity is not a strength, unity is. Okay, so flooding your gut full of bacteria that isn't indigenous to you, there could be a problem there. I mean, we saw it with Christopher Columbus, right? So just to put numbers on the board, right? And this is kind of where we're messing up. You know, natural fruit, like you eat a fruit, you've got pectin, you've got fiber in there. This pectin converts into short chain fatty acids in your gut. And these short chain fatty acids feed your indigenous microbiome, the microbiome that was given to you by your mother through her birth canal, right? So taking more time and letting that form naturally, as opposed to these acute responses from, decades of neglect, and, getting dirty, not washing your socks every day, and not sterilizing your hands, and all this other stuff. Like, this is just social behavior that's, detrimental. It's not an acute detriment. It's an accumulative. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts, like mercury. Mercury is in a lot of stuff. So it's not that one thing. It's like smoking. Smoking doesn't necessarily kill you. It contributes to that in a large way. But if you're overweight, you're not exercising, you're high stress levels, poor nutrition, then it's just a big piece of that percentage that's, putting you in your early grave or making you infirm.
What are some of the cumulative effects that you are seeing in people who are coming to see you with regards to what's wrong with them? Like on both sides, is it like they're exhausted, they don't feel well, they're dealing with inflammation? What are people typically coming to you with complaints of, other than I'm fat and lazy?
Yeah, well, believe it or not, Ben, a lot of what they're complaining about, the core is like, if I can get someone to reduce their calories, if I can get them to, for the body, not under duress, but actually as a sign of being more, what's the word I'm looking for, more efficient, getting rid of the adiposity, okay, decreasing the size of the adipose tissue, the body fat. It helps to benefit in regards to inflammation. Inflammation is huge right now. People are in the midst of a gunfight with a knife. They're just carrying around too much fat, not enough muscle. They're inefficient. So they're spending a lot of time and a lot of energy doing things that they should be comfortable doing, right? So it's a poor fuel scenario. So by giving them the proper calories, you'd be surprised how many people you talk to and how many calories do you need, right? But they know their bank accounts, they know their bills, they know everything, what they have to pay out. Well, why? That's important, right? They know their stats on their baseball, whatever, right? But they don't know how many calories that their bodies need in order to facilitate the day, right? So they're underpaid or they're not paid evenly. So the body defaults to storage. It defaults to energy savings or fuel savings. So if you eat a lot on the weekend and then you're busy during the week and you starve yourself and you miss meals, then the body looks at the average and it says, okay, on average, I'm getting this many calories. So I'm going to reduce my system to be able to accommodate that. Muscle is incredibly expensive, right? People think that you burn fat as a source of fuel. The second best source of fuel for the human body is muscle. It contains your glucose. It's like having a box. Inside is glycogen. The box itself is muscle, right? So you can take the contents of the box and burn that, or you can burn the entire thing in emergency. So you burn the contents and then, oh, I'm out of contents. What's next? I can go 300 feet this way and go and get some more material, fat, really go out of my way. It's kind of dangerous. It's dark. I hear wolves, right? So I'm just going to start burning the containers in which I keep my glucose. But where I was going with that is muscle's expensive. Muscle's expensive. It has to be circulated. It has to be used, right? it benefits a lot, but it's also really expensive. So as we become inconsistent with our food, then the body starts to think, where can I, where's the best bang for my buck in regards to budget savings?
Yeah, I haven't had meat in a while, and I'm made of meat, so
Exactly.
we're gonna pull
Exactly.
from
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Like makes like. So I find people that come in, Ben, they're like, I don't, sorry, I don't crave meat. I don't crave protein. To me, that's a sign right there. Any organism that is built from amino acids, in particular lysine, right? Or leucine, I'm sorry. That amino acid that's specific to animal base, um, there's a problem there. The body is now gone into this mode where it's just surviving. It's not looking to advance or build or develop. It's just basically in that. So I see this with fasting. People that I fast for surgeries and or to make weight, they lose their affinity towards something over time. Like they're hungry for 12 hours, and then after that 12-hour marker, and then they can fast for days even. And then when you start to feed them, they're like, I'm not really that hungry. And this is kind of the inconsistency that's happening. We're just not conscious of what we're eating. Farming is one of the biggest conscious behaviors. You're procuring, you're growing your food. You're aware of it 24/7. We used to be like that. It was the number one concern on any human being's mind. What am I going to eat? How can I feed my family? And now that that's been taken away from us, what am I going to wear? Right? How am I going to make this bill? Right? What's this person think of me? How many likes do I have on Facebook? Those become the primary concerns.
That's where quality for me really starts to come in, because we really lost that. I think it was something like 50 or 100 years ago, 1 in 10 people grew up on a farm,
Yeah.
or 1 in 4 people grew up on a farm. And now it's like 1 in 100. And so we have really chosen to reduce the quality just in happenstance of like, we need higher yields because fewer people are actually doing this. But then on top of that, we have, and I use a statistic all the time, 60% or 58% of the food that we grow in Canada ends up being wasted.
Yeah.
So then it just comes down to a quality thing, that like people culturally don't know where their food comes from. And so more and more I try to encourage people to just like understand, know, and pay attention. And I think that is probably what a lot of people you see, is they're just not paying attention to
No,
what's going in their body.
yeah, their intentions are great. And if they're educated, they tend to make better decisions, but they're just too busy. And that's it. They're spending so much time on the minutia that they're missing the big picture. Um, the quality of food is incredibly important. It is, because what people find is the more quality they eat, the less they eat, the less they waste. They become more functional eaters, and it doesn't become this experience where it says, "Oh, I have to have this emotional gastro," you know, it drives me nuts. Food is function. I love, chicken and broccoli because I can play with my kids after school at 50, going on 52 years of age. I'm unmedicated. I'm fit. That's why I love my food. It's nice to go out and enjoy a meal for psychological purposes, but right now I think everything, again, the cart's before the horse. We're eating for psychological purposes and not physiological purposes. If we eat what we need most of the time, we get to eat what we want to some of the time. And that's just being a grown ass adult, right?
I think a lot of people, when you think I'm hungry, it's just I need to put fuel in the tank, right? You're not concerned with whether it's regular or whether it's supreme or whether it's diesel. You're just like, I'm gonna work.
Quick response, vending machine, here we go, right? Yeah, instead of anticipating it, understanding hunger is an emotion. That's it. Every time you're angry, Ben, you don't punch people, right? Oh, I'm angry, I gotta do something, right? No. Feel it, but you don't have to act on it. Hunger is not starvation. Hunger is just your gastrointestinal tract, your digestive system, because it's conditioned. You eat every day at 3 o'clock. Do that for a month, and then don't, and see what happens, right? You're hungry at 3 o'clock. It's an emotion, but people are being told by the industry, because when you're hungry, you think you need a new cell phone, go buy a new cell phone. We're taught to make decisions based on our emotion, as opposed to being taught to think through those emotions. Those emotions trigger action, but then it's the logic that should determine the action, not the emotion.
People are so keen to have immediate results. They don't like delayed gratification. And so, and you alluded to it already, but what are your thoughts on the popularity now of GLP-1 or Ozempic for weight loss?
I might surprise you with this one. I believe it's necessary for a lot of people, but again, like everything else, it's just not being backed up. It's a soul dependency thing. Whereas, like I work with people using GLP-1s, Ozempic, Wegovy, those types of things. And with solid nutrition, the results are astronomical, like crazy, because they've reduced their appetite. They're becoming more knowledgeable. So it's like talking someone from a frenzy down. Okay, you're calm now. So now the information that I'm giving you is going to be absorbed, because information without understanding is just inflammatory. It just pisses people off. It'd be like us crossing a busy intersection. We're afraid to get hit. And I'm telling you something really, really important. And then we cross the intersection, like, so what do you think of that, Ben? Like, dude, I wasn't even listening to you. Like, I was worried about getting hit. You know, it's piss poor timing, poor timing.
Let's
So,
let's take a step back just for a second.
sure.
What does Ozempic or GLP-1 do to your body?
It basically suppresses your appetite. It's a non-invasive gastric bypass. Like, it just basically curbs your appetite.
So
Um,
it's telling your brain that you don't need food when you're getting those signals that you do.
Exactly,
Okay.
right? So there's all kinds of science behind it, but the long and short of it, that's what it does. You simply just eat less. But the thing is, if you eat less, you end up starving your muscles as well, and the body atrophies a lot of muscle. So, I've heard scary statistics like 60% of your weight loss is muscle. So if a person loses 100 pounds, 60 pounds of that is muscle. That muscle doesn't come back. I mean, you and I both know how difficult it is, and especially the age category that these medications are being given to. It's a lot of women past, menopause, and they're already primed and set for sarcopenia, which is the gradual natural loss of muscle. So there's a problem there. And this is kind of where we're seeing it with, fall and break injuries, which account for, I could be getting this number wrong, but over or close to 80% of elderly people that die in the hospital because they just don't have the muscle to recover after the breakage, and their quality of life dramatically decreases. So if they do get out of the hospital, the probability of recovering and having a full functional life is slim to none. Right? You lose a lot of muscle very quickly. If anybody out there listening or watching this has had someone go into a hospital for illness or an injury and they see rapid weight loss, it's not fat. It's muscle, the body feeding off itself to keep itself alive. In the Navy, they called it damage control. So I would stuff $1 billion computer into a hole in the side of the ship and not even be concerned about it, because the primary concern was keeping the ship afloat. So your body's very much the same. If it's not getting what it needs exogenously, meaning through external sources, eating, then it's going to start feeding off itself, and it's going to go to muscle that isn't used. Right? It's going to go to, well, there's lots in your thighs and you're not putting on your steps, and there's your arms and you're not using your arms, and maybe this organ isn't being used, right? So it'll go through that and it'll start to catabolize tissue to provide itself with its own source of amino acids to help protect and repair.
Do you find there's a disconnect between the medical community and the nutritional or dietitians?
There is, yeah. Yeah.
Why?
I think everybody's overwhelmed. I think the dietitians mean well, but they're indoctrinated. You go to school and you're taught these things, and then you're put into an area where you're not really you're prescribing food to people as opposed to really kind of listening to what's going on and thinking about it. I find there just isn't a whole lot of after the fact training. Doctors, I mean, for years I used to point fingers at doctors. Like, it's their problem. They're prescribing medications. The doctors are so overwhelmed. And when you look at the amount of illness right now, infirmity because of poor nutrition, poor lifestyle, and myself at this 25 years, struggling even today to convince people to do what's right with all the tools and training and experience in the world, they just don't have the time or resources. So if you walk in and you've got high blood pressure and dropping 20 pounds would 100% fix that, the probability of you doing that is slim to none. And they know this, and their job is to help you. So they're going to give you a medication just out of that. And I mean, yes, they're kind of promoted to do that as well because it is a pharmacological system. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of doctors, especially the newer ones, that are like, if this person could just lose 20 pounds, but I know they're not going to do it. And right now their blood pressure is up, and that is a big risk factor. So I'm going to, I'll go middle ground. Yeah.
This is really interesting because I feel like I agree certainly because it's something that I spent the same amount of time probably really shitting on doctors. But it's not their fault, and especially because I've heard from a lot of doctors that they're just not taught nutrition,
No, they're not.
and so there's that massive disconnect with regards to their education. But then systemically, we have the problem with their socialized medicine that the dots don't connect. We've got doctors that get paid by the government to do things, and then you get paid by people who come or insurance that pays you. And so it makes it really difficult for people to access all of those pieces, right? Because you've got that whole cycle of what you'll need to do. And like you said, you're going to go to a doctor to get fixed. And then they, with socialized medicine, want to get somebody fixed and out of the system as fast as possible. And the only way to do that, or the fastest way to do that, is not by therapy and convincing somebody to have a mental shift. It's to have a physical shift. So to give them, prescribe the medication that arguably, does its job. You'll lose that 20 pounds, but at what cost and what's the detriment?
It's symptom. It's that's all it is. They're just dealing with symptom. No one is ever really fixed, right? If you haven't fixed the issue that caused it, you're dealing with the symptom. It'd be like going to the doctor and saying, "Listen, I've got this big bump from this snake bite. Oh, I'll take care of the bump, no problem." But the snake venom is still circulating through your system, but you don't see it. You know what I mean? So you keep going back for bumps that keep showing up, manifesting, because they didn't get to the poison, and the poison is staying in your system. And this is kind of the attitude that we have today is, 20 years of poor behavior, I need to fix it. Doc, I've been smoking for 35 years. I just developed emphysema. And the truth is, no, you didn't. You've been developing it over 35 years. It's just now gotten to a point where it's getting in the way, or it's symptomatic. So fix it, right? And they can't. They can medicate the symptoms, but you need to exercise, you need to eat better. There's therapies that you can do, and you can rehabilitate. But Neil, rehabilitation hurts. I'm like, people come to me, they're like, I'm doing everything right. Why do I feel so shitty? Well, because there's pain associated to rehabilitation. Like, it's not just, oh, Ben, I'm sorry, and we're good. It's, no, I have to work towards that. I have to prove to you that I'm better, that we're better. It takes time, and it takes discomfort, and people don't want to be uncomfortable, right? Okay, so that's a big portion of it is, eating this. I'm eating better. Why am I getting sick? Well, because you're supposed to get sick. It's just how sick and how long, right? You're going to find that as you naturally get sick, the body gets more resistant to it. If you're eating better, a lot like the gym, and again, the gym and exercise can really teach us a lot because it's a really kind of a short time frame in regards to seeing how the body develops itself on an epigenetic level based on its environment. So you get really, really sick, and your body draws from muscle, and you just take time off. I'm a big believer in fasting when you're sick. Let the body deal with what it needs to deal with. Don't separate its resources by eating a bunch of food. Let your body deal with it. And then as you recoup, you start eating good, nutritious food. And it's almost like a reward. Okay, so when I work out and then I have a high protein meal afterwards, my body looks at the workout as successful. And it says, wait a minute, every time I go to the gym and I tear down my muscle fibers, it hurts, but I get rewarded for it. So it stops seeing it as stress and starts to see it as stimulus. Instead of a problem, it sees it as a challenge, and it starts to look forward to that breakdown, right? Can I do something? Can I do something challenging? Because I know when I do, I'm going to get rewarded for it, right? So these people going through these illnesses, and then they pick themselves back up, dust off, eat well, exercise. The next time the illness comes around, the body's like, all right, I'm ready for it. It's new, but I got this. And because I know I'm going to put 100% into it, because at the tail end of it, I'm going to eat well again, I'm going to exercise, and my owner, my mom, my dad, or whatever you want to call this, is going to be very, very happy with me. And then you become more resistant. You become callous to it. The more weight you lift, the more you can lift. Gravity doesn't change as far as I know, right? So these are just behaviors that no one's talking about. Everybody's, you go on social media, it's all about weight loss. And going back to the whole doctors and the medical system, I think, can you imagine, Ben, if there were incentivizations for people who are healthy as opposed to benefits for those who aren't, right?
Other countries do that.
It's right. We don't have healthcare. And I'll argue this is another hill. I get a bunch of hills I'm going to die on. But this is another one. We don't have healthcare, all right? Because you cannot see a doctor unless you're sick. So we have sick care. Healthcare is about incentivizing people, not taxing sodas, but incentivizing people that aren't drawing a lot from the medical system, giving them cash incentives to invest in exercise or certain foods. You spent so much or so little this year on your health care, prescription medicines, things like that. Here's an incentive for you for saving us, the government, money, and you being a better, more contributing person to our society. It would be absolutely unbelievable. Then more people would have that incentive. I'm going to grow my own garden. I'm going to work less hours, be more productive in those less hours at work, mind you, and I'm going to have the energy and health to be able to put a garden in with my kids, grow some animals out back, right?
What do you feel is stopping Canada from going that route? Because like I said, there's other countries, to my knowledge, that have, I can't think of any at the moment, but that have gone that route,
Certainly,
that are able to promote health. And I think there's even tax deductions for you not going to the doctor. Not that chronic illness or being sick is a bad thing, but being able to maintain healthy and like, oh, you're not smoking, you didn't get lung cancer because you smoked for 20 years, here's a gold star, whatever.
Yeah.
So why isn't Canada headed that way? Or are we and we just don't know it yet?
I don't see signs of it yet. There's not much talk of it, and I think a lot of it is just, it's one of these things. It's an institutionalization. It's just the way we've always done stuff. Yeah, I see it all the time, even in what it is that I do. If I just diet harder, do the same thing, just harder, and you're going to get the same result, only probably worse. You have to do things different in order to get different results, and that's an incredibly hard sell when you've got decades of the same behavior and people focusing on who's doing things wrong instead of who's doing things right. And you see that in the media a lot. This person's, it's all pointing the fingers as opposed to taking on the ownership of it, extreme ownership, right? Yeah, I'm tired of pointing out I don't point out what people do wrong.
That's I think for Canada specifically, a big hazard of being so attached to the US and US media that everything, like we figured out how to make money with rage bait and clickbait. And so we now know how to make people angry. And so I even saw a video last night of like making fun of a larger girl going to the gym. And I'm like, hey, stop that.
Yeah.
Anybody who's going to the gym, whether you're whatever reasons, but especially somebody who's trying to better themselves and is larger, like we should be encouraging that. Absolutely. We should have a culture that is pushing more for that and encouraging people. But I think we've received a lot of, not to brag on the United States, but we've received a lot culturally from the US with regards to that negativity. And so we culturally have really adopted that. And it's changed Canada for the worse.
It has. We've made a lot of decisions recently based on fear. And as long as we keep making decisions based on, I don't want to get sick. Like, Neil, I don't want to get sick, so tell me what to eat. I'm like, I'm sorry, but that's like not stealing your wallet, Ben, because I'm afraid to get caught. Instead of not stealing your wallet because it's the wrong thing to do. And I wouldn't like my wallet stolen. So there's a, same outcome, but a very different morality associated to it. And right now we're taught everything is based on fear. Do this or, right, take this jab because you need to protect your friend or the people in your community. Like, it's guilt driven as opposed to educating someone so that they're able, you'd be surprised how many people make the right decision when given all of the facts, both sides. And they're not pushed, the whole Jillian Michaels generation of, just jamming things down their throat and hermetically sealing in these environments and making decisions for them. I mean, you see the outcome in that now with the expose with The Biggest Loser. And 97% of people who lose their weight, and I'm just focusing on weight, 97% of people in 5 years have it back because it's done under duress. We need to teach people how to fish. We don't need to feed them any more fish. Yeah.
You mentioned it a little bit there, but your experience with the COVID vax.
Yeah.
Are you open to talking about what happened to you during COVID?
Yeah, fire away.
I was not vaccinated. There was a big push. I mean, from 2021 through 2024, there's a huge push for vaccination. And this might piss some people off, but we're very convinced that the result of Sawyer's autism is because of his 1-year vaccinations. There's some debate with regards to that. Autism is a collective of genetics and external factors, and there's a lot, like the whole Tylenol causes autism thing. But you had a very real example of a healthy guy going and getting a vaccine and then having some complications afterwards. So what happened?
I developed myocarditis. So I took both shots. Didn't want to. It was under duress, but because two-family household and the pressures that be, I'm like, and there's no way in heck I was going to, and I've got 3 kids, okay? There was no way in heck I was going to get my kids vaccinated and then me not. So I'm like, you know what? If they're going to do it, I'm going to do it, and if I'm going to do it, then they should do it. But it was more the former than the latter. I'm like, okay, I was getting a lot of pressure in regards to shared custody and that kind of thing, right?
And even culturally, it was bad during that
It was
time.
it was bad. And I was open about my hesitancy. I was very open, and I lost a lot of friends, and those friends are still not there. Family members as well. Like, there was a lot of divides formed that were permanent.
And this is specifically, like, we're talking specifically the COVID vaccine right now.
Yes.
Just because I think there's a huge misnomer with regards to the anti-vax community and conspiracies, and that's a whole other thing to talk about. You can talk about mercury and aluminum, and we can talk about those things. But specifically with regards to the COVID vax, you were a healthy guy, work out. I mean, you're still a healthy guy, but what happened? How quickly was your myocarditis set on?
It wasn't set on quickly. That was the nefarious part about it. It was probably about a month and a half, so 6 to 8 weeks after. And I started to feel the symptoms.
I'll play really quickly, devil's advocate. Is there any possibility it was something else in your life?
No. I mean, it was obvious when I went in and got the test done. I called my doctor. We're good friends. And normally I go in for yearly blood work. But other than a gunshot wound, he'd never see me. I don't waste his time. I'm not a big draw. So stabbing chest pains, shortness of breath, I was worried. I was out snow blowing my driveway. I'm like, man, I called him right there. I'm like, I just don't feel right. I can't, carrying laundry up the stairs. And yes, I do my laundry, and I'm just not myself. So that's the benefit to being healthy, is you're able to catch these things. It's like a finely tuned machine, a race car. You're down, a couple pounds of pressure on the right side tire, and you're going to feel it. Whereas when you're driving a beat up old jalopy with the trunk full of...
Turn the music up.
Exactly, turn the music up, and, a wheel could fall off, and you wouldn't notice a whole lot of handling difference. So he had me in, did blood work, and noticed that inflammatory markers were up. Even my bilirubin was up, which is associated to my liver, and creatinine levels, things like this. So he was concerned. So he sent me in for a chest x-ray and did like a ECG and all this stuff. So he was like, yeah, this has got all the telltale markers of it. There was no damage to anything according to the x-ray. And so what I did was I just honestly, and it sounds... There's a lot of things you can do with food that are treatment. They're not lifestyle. Okay. My daughter was diagnosed with Crohn's. She was crapping out whole vegetables. So I eliminated vegetables from her diet. She ate a lot of fruit, masticated or pureed fruit, a lot of meat. And within 3 months, her system had regulated. And when she, yeah, so that was 16. And she was asymptomatic. She was beautiful, A+ student athlete, but just didn't feel well, and at 16 didn't have her menstrual cycle. And the first thing that they wanted to do, and I really butted heads with the gastroenterologist, right off the hop, get out the methyltrexate, get out the biologicals. She's gonna be on it for the rest of her life, and blah blah blah. And my daughter was just overwhelmed. She's like, and then I asked them for the opportunity to treat it metabolically, and they fought me on it because there's no, and this is, again, according to this particular person, there was no conclusive evidence that showed that diet had any influence on your gut. Okay, so
What year was this?
This was, well, she's 23 now, so 2016. So she was 16.
So like a decade ago.
Yeah, almost a decade ago. So 7 years ago. Anyway, and so I finally pleaded my case, and she
Was she pretty open to it?
She was, and it was hard for her to understand at first because it wasn't something that she could see. Anyway, just sidetracking for a minute, and having talked with her, changing a few dietary things, 3 months later, she went back. We did the TB testing and all the stuff that we needed to do because that was what I guaranteed. Listen, we'll be ready if we have to take it, but I want to see if she improves. Anyway, within it was under 2 months, and she started her menstrual cycle. Energy levels came back up. She went in for blood work. The blood work showed a lot better, and it had all but cleared up. She'd gone to the IWK for a secondary colonoscopy, and they were saying that it had dramatically reduced to the signs where it was barely present. And she still has flare-ups a little bit, but it would be typically diagnosed or looked at as IBS. You know what I mean? Loose bowels, cramps, discomfort. She can eat bread and things like that on occasion, but she's learned to know her dosages. Like if she eats something so many days in a row or so much of it, she has an adverse reaction. If she keeps things minimal and she keeps those percentages of her diet. So she eats a lot of meat, she eats a lot of gluten-free stuff, a lot of whole foods, and again, graduated university, lived the university life, drank, hung out with friends, perfectly normal life, and managed it with her nutrition, exercise. She goes to the gym 3-4 days a week. She's a waitress. She's in policing, so she graduated with criminology, so she's going to be working in that industry. She needed her physical health. So anyway, couldn't be more proud of her. So that being said, I got knocked off my tail. I took what I learned from her and applied it to reduce some of the inflammation and help my organs out, simplify. What does my body need to survive? Protein. And what's regenerative? Carbohydrates or fat? Fat. So I basically just jumped in and ate meat. And by the time I went in for my second round of blood work, everything had pretty much normalized. It was crazy.
How long was that transition?
3 weeks.
Wow. Did you go exclusively carnivore or just heavy meat?
No, exclusively carnivore at that point. Like I just needed, and I knew it would be only a short duration, but I was scared. I mean, I was, I would have been 49 at that time. I'm like, I can't mess around with this. If I do damage to my heart or the pericardial sac, like, it's not going to come back easy. So that's what I did. Yeah.
Especially given how much you work out. You're an active guy. You would need, if you have issues like that, that could then lead to, you're in your early 50s and have a heart attack.
Yeah.
More and more it seems like, and I don't know if we're just diagnosing it more or if it's cultural or if it's some type of toxin, but we're seeing more chronic disease like Crohn's, like Nicole's waiting on blood work for some stuff, like immunocompromised. And have you noticed a trend of more chronic disease over your 25 years in the industry?
Yes. Yeah.
What specifically have you, is it more Crohn, or is it, how do I ask this?
Yeah, it's more neurological. I find for a while I was seeing a big uptick in like gastrointestinal, like immune dysfunction, right? But now I'm seeing it more from a neurological basis. Like we're seeing a huge uptick of dementia, Alzheimer's, um, neurodivergency, those types of things. So I'm seeing a lot of cellular breakdown, like early degradation of cells. Okay. And again, a lot of it has to do with, multiple generations of multiple generations of malnourishment and poor living circumstances, like no exercise, huge stress levels. I mean, my God, we're aware of more stress. Like when you and I were growing up, Ben, would a U.S. election ever, ever influence a Canadian election? Or a child drowning in a pool in Detroit. When would you ever know about that and feel that? You know? And the body's having a really, really hard time because the body knows punch, kick, bite, run. And the brain feels this stress and the body's like, what do I do with this? So the brain can callous itself. It can coordinate and compartmentalize a lot of that, but the body can't. And this is it, where we need to exercise more than ever because that's the body's outlet for the stress, the systemic stress that we're carrying. So I'm seeing a lot of things. It's systemic. It's what's the word? Innocuous. We try to identify one thing. What's the one thing that causes cancer? What's the one thing? And unfortunately, from my perspective, a 30,000-foot perspective, I'm like, it's not one thing. It's a multitude of everything intersecting for everybody at different points, depending on their lineage, depending on, so many different factors. Yeah.
That's what really bugged me about the Tylenol causes autism
Yes.
thing, because everybody got up in arms like, oh, I take Tylenol and I'm not autistic. It's like, there's so much more nuance with regards to those conversations.
Oh my,
that
the
are
sound
not
bites are
happening.
killing people for years. And you know this about me. Like, I drank the Kool-Aid when it came to nutrition. Don't eat cooked carrots, Ben. They're too high in the glycemic index. Meanwhile, I'm researching, like, where the hell are the dead bodies? Where's the pathological, diagnosis? This person died from eating too many cooked carrots, or they contracted or developed diabetes because of it. Things are really taken out of nuance, and which, again, it's partial information, and people are making decisions out of fear, right?
One of the things that I've really noticed, and I've talked to a number of people about it here in the studio about, is that this next generation, even my generation a little bit, don't know how to cook. And I think that's a hazard of, and correct me if I'm wrong, our food tastes like shit. like fruits and vegetables do not taste like the stuff that I grow. We just harvested carrots yesterday, snow on the ground, everything.
I saw that.
We harvested a ton of carrots. Nicole made carrot muffins. We had roasted carrots for dinner. They were like candy. You could have put those on a stick and convinced me that those were lollipops. Like, they were delicious. You buy carrots at the grocery store and you're getting a bitter, dirty water taste. Have you noticed that shift in food that used to grow, or even in my lifetime, that I don't know that we've had really, really good food unless you're getting it direct from a market?
There is a huge difference. I mean, it is noticeable, but it's what makes it even worse is the hyperpalatability of the stuff that you can buy that's processed.
What do you mean by hyperpalatability?
Incredible taste, like almost to the point where it just deadens you. You know what I mean? Like if you eat this, like one of the benefits is that you eat responsibly, you eat well, so you taste the food. And that's one of the big things that I find with my clients is like, wow, this broccoli tastes good without cheese and bacon bits on it. I never really knew what broccoli tasted like. So we're creating this precipice between our foods that, again, we're eating for, like, imagine being out in the winter, like cold, like freezing to death. And someone comes to you with, I don't know, a Walmart coat. And you're like, no, I need a Canada Goose, right? So you're willing to freeze to death because of that. When it comes to people are, again, going back to, they're just not eating for what it is that they need, but they've become so detached with their body and their body's needs that they don't know. Like, it's a really broken relationship when it comes to that behavior. So the relationship with how food should taste is gone. They don't know how it should taste. They know loud foods. They know foods that are, again, hyper palatable, manipulated to taste really good, not be filling, so you buy more of it. It's an industry, people. They benefit when you eat more. And, we still have the law of thermodynamics. So, you might not eat a lot, but what you're eating is very calorie dense. So there is a problem there. Plus the fact that you're carrying less muscle, and muscle is what burns the calories. It's a bigger engine. You're going to need more fuel. Smaller engine in people. They're heavier, yes, but they're not bigger muscular, right?
It still, I think, goes back to the cultural issues that we have. Everything sort of circles around those cultural issues of, we want it fast and we want it easy. And so with regards to how we shop for food, some people will go once a week, some people will go once a month, whereas in other countries, they will shop once a day. You go to the market and you get fresh fruit and vegetables daily.
And they have ice boxes. Their kitchens are tiny. Like, it's a very, oh yeah, our environment definitely has set us up for this. We are the result. It is a epigenetic response. It's not a genetic thing. We're not genetically designed to be fat and lazy, but our environment makes us that way, right? So we need to navigate our environment better until we can change our environment. That's the bottom line, right? You start to navigate this concentration camp a little bit better. You know what I mean? You start to learn the timing of the guards. You start to say, wait a minute, for every 100 prisoners, there's only one guard. Why are we not storming the gate? Well, because we're underfed, we're weak, we're overwhelmed, and we're being fed a shit ton of propaganda, the same way as they would if we were in a POW camp, I hate to say it, but it needs to be said. And it's just, after so long, you get institutionalized. The people don't want the freedom. Neil, I don't want to think about what I eat. Just write me a meal plan. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
It's so interesting because in other cultures, and we would be, like, I'm of European descent, so we would be very in tune with food as a spiritual thing, like getting together as a family. Even like my parents or grandparents, we'd get together at the table and we'd have our meals. And today it's, and I can't count the number of people, when I did work in your industry, the number of people that would come in and just be like, hey, can you give me a pill for weight loss? I just want to lose weight. Like, what? And as someone who, like, I love food, like, a lot, and to hear people who don't cook or don't care to cook or don't really care to eat is just such a disservice. And I think it goes back to either the grocery store food doesn't taste good, or they only have taste for the salt or the sugar. And it's really sad to hear. We had a girl working with us with our autistic son a couple of years ago, and she said she doesn't eat meals. She buys Subway twice a day.
Yes.
And that she'll just pack it. She'll have it for lunch, and then she'll eat it, the rest of it, for dinner time. And I was like, but you could cook. Like, you could have potatoes with butter or with animal fat with tallow and like these beautiful dishes. And that's why you saw the instruction we have outside. That's why we want to create the learning center for people, because even canning, preserving, growing food is so novel to people. But we're seeing now in this economy, it's becoming, oddly enough, cheaper to do it yourself.
Yes.
If you can spare the time.
And that's the caveat right there, is the time. To working parents and kids now with, issues. It's hard. But again, everything in life worth having is hard. It's putting a value to it. And if they're not educated enough, if they don't know, shortcuts, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming for people to lose body fat and to become healthier. They don't even know where to start because they've made it so insurmountably, crazy. And my job effectively is to dumb it down for people. Like, okay, let's just focus on, let's let's pull the big levers first, right? Before we get into the dials and stuff like that. And the same for you. Like if I notice in your programming, you dumb it down for people. Like you simplify it, you make it fun. It's not, we've come at this from the wrong angle. A lot of it is we're fear driving people in. You know, if you don't lose weight, you're going to die of a heart attack. It doesn't resonate with people. It doesn't resonate with people. But if you simplify it and you get them in, they're like, wow, I feel better. I'm connecting with my kids and my wife. You know, my wife can't keep her hands off me. How do I do more? Right? Starting with just the introductory level as opposed to just getting in and just throwing things at them. It's crazy. Yeah.
Nicole and I have talked about that with regards to the food that we grow and how to invest in the food that we grow and the quality that we have would be so expensive. So we're seeing, even just with regards to normal vegetables, you go to the grocery store now and see the cost of regular vegetables. And so we're seeing that tipping point. I think we're almost there because a lot of families are debating whether or not to put their kids into daycare so that mom can have a job, so that both parents can have jobs. And well, sometimes it doesn't make sense because daycare is too expensive. So it's the same thing, and I see the same with regards to gardening or growing food. Is like, okay, if you're able to save however much on growing carrots, tomatoes, whatever, and learning these things, cooking your own meals, can you then save your grocery bill? So can you find that time? Because like you said, it's very much you're working 2 or 3 jobs, you're burning the candle at both ends. So where can you save that time? Because you've only got a finite number of hours. And when you're not making enough money, okay, how do we get out of that cycle? And it's difficult to change.
It is. Change is always difficult. And a lot of it just boils down to prioritization. It's when you start to see that that shift, you know, where things have different priorities. The cost benefit, the return on your investment, you know, right now it's a superficial place and people are just looking for the quick fix and they're lost. And it's so much easier. Like imagine walking into a car dealership. I need a car. You see the salesman's eyes just cha-ching, right? But if you went in with specifics, okay, I need a car that does, or a vehicle that does this, this, and this, right? Then you're purchasing as opposed to being sold to. We're being sold to. People, they have a general need, but they don't have the specifics. Neil, I want to be healthy. All right, what does that taste like, smell like, look like, feel like? Because right now it's all smoke. Well, I was told I need to be healthy. But what is your health? What is that, right? You need to be clothed, but what do you want to wear? What's comfortable? What's practical for your line of work? Like these are questions. They're legitimate questions, but they're not being asked in health either, right? What do you want to do? So say I don't want to be a farmer. Say I have no inclination to be a farmer, right? How do I still be healthy without having to grow my own vegetables? Well, guess what? I make better choices, but then I get to know someone who does and I support them, right? And I think that's where like people think that in order for them to be healthy, they have to grow their own vegetables. But that's never been like that in the history of history. There was always a few people in a community that did that. And I think that that's where we need to start to look at. But it's for the other people that aren't growing their vegetables to see the importance of having vegetables. And then you get this symbiosis, this community effect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and then having the quality of the vegetables there too, because I think
Absolutely.
we've gone very far that way. Because you're right, culturally it was always you had the builders and the foragers and the farmers, and so we had all of these little pieces. But now we've really squeezed that into. We've got so few farmers and distribution centers such that we just don't respect the system anymore.
No, we don't see it, right? We don't see the system, so there's no relationship to it. There's no awareness of it. But also, too, I mean, you and I've talked about this before in the past in regards to, you know, indigenous eating, you know, eating the food from your environment and not having a huge variety. I think, again, to go into another kind of subsect of this, variety is our undoing. You know, again, we don't need variety. We can cook the same foods many different ways and get variety that way. But if I go to the gym and I do a different workout every day, I'm constantly in a state of breakdown. There's no development. There's no adaptation, right? You need the body to strive to adapt, but not achieve it. And this is the dilemma. We have seasonal food. If we ate food in season, it'd be fantastic. And then eat it in season. Next season rolls around. So within years and decades, the body starts to adapt to the circadian rhythm. And its digestive system and microbiome and everything gets so good at breaking this food down. You're pulling in, nutritional components that normally would be malabsorbed because your digestive system is so overwhelmed with all of this variety that it's not gotten good at anything. It's just barely good at everything.
Is there any truth to our bodies working different? Like I said, how do I ask this? This time of year, snowed. It was the first time I had to shovel and actually take care of the yard. Um, is it more difficult to lose weight, to stay healthier, to stay lean this time of year as opposed to in spring and summertime? Given your circadian rhythm, like, have you noticed that in people where it's like there's some pushback?
Yeah, let's talk about that. So typically when you think about circadian rhythm in terms of like evolutionary biology, you think it'd be easier for us to lose weight in the wintertime because historically that's when we would normally lose weight. We would feed off our fat, right? We'd be more sedentary, so the body'd be more prone to fat burning because fat burning happens at a lower oxidative rate. Your respiratory rate, heart rate, things start to, you need to be in a certain zone for that to happen. Anything higher is glycolytic, the body, craves carbohydrates. That's why, large amounts of cardio and losing weight is very detrimental to your skeletal muscle system because you're burning carbohydrates. I put a video out recently in regards to the difference between burning fat and using fat, right? So when you're moving around, you're burning the digestive fat in your body. You're not getting into the stored fat. It takes time. You have to be, in a range, sleeping, hibernating, so to speak. So in terms of circadian rhythm, you'd think it'd be easier to burn fat in the wintertime. I think one of the biggest issues from a metabolic standpoint is the fat that we store isn't as nutritiously valuable. So the body tends not to, it's hesitant, it's very toxic. There's all kinds of shit in there: herbicides, pesticides, formaldehyde, medication, hormones, even drugs, illicit drug use. Like these things are in your storage back shed, you know what I mean? And then when you release that into the system, now the living tissue has to deal with that. So if you're not a healthy organism, and then it's going to be hesitant to do that, right? So summertime, a lot of my clients think that, oh, summertime I'm more active, but you're more socially active, longer days, longer daylight hours. We tend to eat more calories because we're up more, we're more social, food's more abundant. So when you look at the normal circadian rhythm, we would gain weight in the midsummer, late summer, fall, right? We fatten up for the winter, right? So what do? We try to, we gain weight in the winter now and we lose weight in the summer because it's more of a superficial reason, right? I want to get into my summer clothes. I'm on the beach, come April, everybody starts to go south. So they're all panicking. So our circadian rhythm is really messed up. The thing about eating natural food and whole food is the body has, like, if I fed you 25 Timbits, you'd eat them, right? With a big glass of milk and probably ask for more. If I gave you 25 apples of the same calories, right? Like a medium to small apple, gave you 25 of those, you'd crap your pants, probably apple 12, right? The body would literally, and you'd develop canker sores and the body would be like, wait, idiot, like, stop eating these. So there's a recognition to a certain extent there. So I find people that eat more whole food, more protein-rich food, they tend to just naturally not eat as much, regardless of the year. Weight loss can be achieved better in the winter months because of the fact there's less to do and there's more structure. You're only a phone call away from having a beer in someone's back patio in the summer, okay? There's more structure. And in terms of losing weight, okay, there needs to be a sustained caloric deficit. It's hard to sustain anything regular in an irregular period right? So imagine if you saw it seasonally. If, say, I was looking to maintain my weight. So I gained weight in the summer, and then lost that weight in the winter, or gained a little weight over Christmas and then naturally lost that weight between Christmas and Easter, and then gained a bit over Easter and lost a little bit. So I teach my clients that weight gain is never the problem. It's never been the problem. Weight loss is never the problem. It's how much we do of each and how far we let it go. It's like credit card debt, right? Putting money on your credit card is not a problem. It is if you can't pay it off, or if you get to a point where you're just paying on the interest and not the principal. So circadian rhythm wise, it just depends on the individual. The light cycle, vitamin D, all that stuff, there's influences there, but if you're getting proper sunlight in the summer, you're out, you're living life, you're having fun, the body's more apt to try to get into its adipose tissue because that's where the vitamin D is stored. So the body's kind of incentivized to burn fat. And you can create a more sustainable caloric deficit even in our environment in the wintertime. You know, getting dressed up and going out is harder. So it creates that little gap between action or influence and action. Oh, I feel like going out for a beer, or I feel like going out for a slice of pizza. Oh, it's cold outside. It's already dark. No, I think I'll just stay in my pajamas and, you know, Netflix and chill, right? So there's more likelihood of that. So I find the winter time, if your head's on straight, is a really beneficial time to drop a few pounds of body fat without risking muscle loss. And I have other clients that use the winter time to build muscle so that they have more play with it in the summer. So it's a stage of building and then activation. So you build some muscle over the winter months, and then you get to enjoy that muscle over the summer. And with the leniency in eating and behavior, because you have more muscle, you're less apt to store calories because you're burning more at rest and at play. So if you do this through your life, then all of a sudden you're decreasing the probability of gaining a surplus of adiposity, meaning too much body fat. You're increasing your muscle from year to year. You can't be in a constant state of growth. It drives me nuts. I don't go to the gym frequently throughout the year. I drive it over the winter. I love the winter. It helps with my seasonal affective disorder. Like I get melancholy in these shorter days. Going to the gym helps me, but it shows me a sign of growth and development. So I'm able to develop muscle over the winter months. And then I might go to the gym maybe once or twice a week, maybe. I'm out on my Harley. I'm enjoying things. I'm spending time with loved ones. We're going on all kinds of crazy adventures with our kids. I get to enjoy my gains, right? To put it in kind of in a meathead perspective. But I've learned to now go in cycles. So everybody can develop their own circadian rhythm, and the body will adapt to that.
It's super interesting to even hear somebody else's perspective, because I've noticed over the last number of years, like for the last decade, I've really been like, I was always the scrawny kid, would never fluctuate at all. Like I was 156 pounds for like 10 years. And then the last 3 years, since we've been really farming more, putting on more work around the property, dealing with animals, yeah, I put on, and even the difference last year, I really noticed it. The difference between about now, November and March, is very stark. Like it's about 10, 15 pounds where I'll put on 10, 15 pounds now, like I'll be heavier. And then come March, I've used all of that, and then going into the summer season, I'm much leaner. And then as you start
But
to
you
work,
always end up with a surplus of muscle, so you're about 3 to 5 pounds heavier each year. And that's, yeah, I found the same. Like 7 years ago when I met my wife, I was 156, 158 pounds. So we just celebrated our 8-year date anniversary. We've been married 5, but we've been dating 8. So over those 8 years, I've gone from 158 pounds to I'm about 200, 202 pounds. Same waistline, same, just, and added more energy, more this, but it's been cyclical. Whereas before that, and my history in regards to exercise-induced anorexia and just all of the issues that I've had with food, it was, again, making my body do something that I wasn't supporting it doing. So it was doing under duress. And as we get older, Ben, what happens is, just like anybody else that's put their time in to any endeavor or a company, it starts to see its self-worth and starts to say, listen, I'm not going to do it unless you give me what I need now. I've proven to you. We've gone through countless things together. I've always been there for you. And now I've got more runway behind me than I do in front of me. and the body's demands are up now. It's not doing it maliciously. It's doing it out of my own protection. It can't afford to lose muscle. I'm like, I would rather be, dragging my heels for the next 26 years, knowing that you're alive, than sacrificing muscle tissue just because, you want to drop a few pounds. So again, like, people get all very upset. And this big thing that's coming up right now, and you're going to hear this over the next 3 years, is this psychological connection, or the placebo effect, when it comes to food. People that automatically think that they're eating something that's not nutritious for them, the body's going to react differently to it. And there's multiple studies that support that. One of the most recent ones was they gave a group of 10 individuals, same height, same weight, same age, same gender, group of 10 a drink, and another group, so a group of 20 in total, so A and B we'll call them, gave them a drink, changed the label on the drink, gave it to the other group. So group B had the same drink, but on the label it was organic, sugar-free, all this stuff. So they had them attached to a glucose monitoring device. So it wasn't subjective, it wasn't anecdotal. It was, they registered the blood reading after they consumed it. What they found was the difference in the honest label. People had a much higher or much more dramatic response on a blood glucose level than the people who thought that they were drinking healthier drinks. And this is the same pharmacological studies, the placebo effect. I mean, I give you a blood pressure pill, and I give the other person a sugar pill, tell you it's a sugar pill, tell the other person it's a blood pressure pill. Up to 40% of the people taking the sugar pill will exhibit the results of a blood pressure pill because they think that they're taking it. So again, a lot of that is, if you feel like you're eating shit, then the body's going to respond in kind. Yeah. Same way as if you're nervous. There's a physiological response to psychological stimuli.
It's really cool the more you look into it, how much control you have over your body with your mind, where we, in a lot of our days, are very superficial, like very, I can see, hear, taste, but we have a lot of that control if we were able to harness it. And I think for some, and I've listened to podcasts to the effect that it's hokey, it's kind of out there, it's very conspiracy, how much control, spirituality and energy, even I spoke to somebody recently about Reiki and things and energies, and I think that's really what bugged me about COVID. There's a lot of science and a lot with regards to science that we don't know and don't understand. Virology is a relatively new study, and our bodies, we're constantly understanding new things, good things, bad things. So it's really cool to discover, have studies like that come out to say, hey, the placebo effect, I mean, we've known about the placebo effect for generations, but to understand how much of an effect it can have on your body, and how, okay, I listened to a podcast recently on hypnosis. Yes. Could you be hypnotized to quit smoking, to lose weight, to whatever, and being suggestible or being able to manipulate your mind in a way to change so drastically is really, really cool.
I'm sure some people are more privy to it than others, but at the end of the day, there's something to that. And I believe a lot of the marketing and a lot of the fear mongering that's going on has a huge effect on us, and eating the things that we are told to eat because this does this, taking a vitamin because this does this, and going in with this preconceived ideology, you're kind of setting yourself up. So a lot of it is, I advise my clients just not to dig too far deep into it. Try something and see how it feels, right? And what that does is it creates a relationship between your body and your mind. So again, the mind doesn't control anything, it influences. And the body influences the same way as your wife influences you, and vice versa. There's no controlling. It's influential. You work as a team. It's a collaboration. And that's been lost entirely. It's been lost entirely. The mind is this way, the body's this way, and they're supposed to be working together. And it's not. But it takes time to get them together. It takes time on the couch. It takes a lot of arguing and yelling and saying things that you might not like. But eventually, right, they come together. And then they figure out, wow, you want the same thing I want, right? And then now you can have a conversation. Okay, body, this is what I want you to do. What do you need? And the body, because the body doesn't know what to do. Not after that age of growth and development. Once you're in your mid-20s, the body's like, okay, I did my job. Now, mind, I need you to lead me. What environment are you going to put me in so that I need to adapt? But now you're taking the wheel here. You need to point me in the right direction. My job is simply just to adapt to the environment. That's my job. That's my only job, right? So if you get them, and if the mind is concerned about the body and is related and is connected to the body, the mind starts to make decisions based on the body's needs, and the body starts to make decisions based on the brain's needs. And that's how you have a good partnership.
We become so focused on the chemical, biochemical, and biological that we've really discounted the psychological of what we're able to do and how we're able to control our bodies and influence people.
The observer, yeah. So you've got all of these systems, but who's managing these systems? And it's seen in quantum, quantum physics. It's the observer, the predictable outcome, right? If I think there's going to be 3 slats, there's going to be 3 slats, right? It's incredible. So this is, a lot of it is just by not being so overwhelmed with right and wrong and looking at it from an exploratory, like, don't look for answers, look for information, right? And I can't give you answers. This is the first thing I tell clients. I'm sorry, I can't give you the answer, but I can help you find your answer by giving you information, and then you can extrapolate from the information and experience what works for you. Yeah.
I want to take a quick break, and then when we come back, I'd like to talk about your history of eating disorders and what sort of led you down this path to nutrition and counseling. You got this far in the episode, so you should consider joining our Patreon. You can join either as a free or a paid subscriber. I prefer paid, of course, but over there you can interact with other members of the community. It's better than your Facebook, your Instagram, your YouTube. You don't have to be beholden to the algorithm. You can get emails when we send out these episodes. We can give you updates. You can ask questions that I would ask of my guests here. Go to patreon.com/homegrownshow, where you can interact a little easier. We can have conversations. You can suggest guests that should be on the next episode, because I want you to have a say. And otherwise, I don't get paid for doing this. If you want to support me, go to patreon.com/homegrownshow. You can support us directly right there. It's a cheap option to be able to support. If you enjoy these episodes, do it. Support it. Or at least just join as a free member so you can support us by continuing to listen to or watch these episodes. Back to the show.
No, when it comes to like anorexia, it's got the highest rate of mortality out of any psychological disorder. And for a male to have it, then there's definitely an issue. Again, those decisions that I see in my clients, I lost my weight because of my hatred for myself. So it stemmed from a point of hate. I hated my life. I hated how I looked. I hated how I felt. I was undiagnosed ADD, so I have a condition called, it's dysgraphia, okay, so, or dyscalculia, which is a form of dysgraphia. So I see numbers and things backwards, and there's all kinds of different things that I found out in my late 40s after being kind of, looked at and saying, wow, okay, this is what you're dealing with, that I'm able to connect the dots. One of them was a speech impediment, but the body image disorder didn't help with that, and the lack of, self-esteem, So I hated myself so much. I was going through a very messy home life. My parents were divorcing, and it was so I had no control over anything. So I could control what I put in my mouth. So therefore I could control what I didn't. And I went to see my doctor one day. I remember sitting at the table, and he just said, Neil, you just got to exercise. You got to burn more calories than you take in. Stop eating so damn much and start exercising. So I did. And as my body would plateau, because I was still growing, and it needed resources and calories and fuel to fuel the growth process.
Were you overweight or anything
Yes,
at
it
the
was.
time?
Oh
Okay.
yeah. I was fat. I was obese, not morbidly obese, but obese. And my day and age, I was one of 3 kids in my school that was. So I was called out every, wouldn't change in locker rooms with other kids. Like it was, had to avoid classes where we stood up to read and memorize and things like that. So just constant anxiety, right, left, and center. It was miserable. So it was kind of a last ditch effort, but it was almost like believe it or not, it was almost like a passive aggressive suicide. It's like, this is either going to work or it's going to kill me. Either way, it's a win, right? So I hit it very well, covered my body up, and I'd run at night, early mornings when no one was around. So I'd be out running, 10K at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then getting up and going to school, and then not eating at school. And then I started to get attention as I started to lean out, and, people started to notice me, treat me different. And I like that. And I was so scared to gain the weight back, and I only knew forward or reverse, that I just kept going. And then one day I just couldn't wake up. I was anemic. And then when they got me in there, they're like, wow, once they broke it down, they saw that they connected the dots. So it manifested at 13. I'm 52. So I've been dealing with this for 40 years approximately. And it's always been controlling the food. It's always been a fear-driven thing for me. Even my bodybuilding, fear-driven, control. I must control this. I'm the master, as opposed to learning and finding, where everything fits. Like, again, a holistic approach, but not in the traditional sense that people think. It's just finally understanding that my body doesn't hate me. It doesn't hate me. And I can give it, and it's not a daffodil, right? It doesn't have to be the purest of pure all the time. There comes a point where it's a necessity, and then it's a point of respect. Then you just, like, someone who's your life, someone who you love deeply and you understand, you care for, you want to give them the best. It's not out of obligation or contract, or if I don't, they'll leave me. It's, no, I want to. Like, it's just, it becomes natural to. 25 years it took me to get to there. Like, I haven't, until I discovered, because of my number issue, I never track calories. I was told during the psychological, just stay off the scale. I'm like, but later in life, it didn't make sense to me. It'd be like someone who's financially crippled. Well, just stop opening your credit card statement. Just don't look at your bank account. If you don't, if it gives you anxiety. And I'm like, no, that doesn't work. And I needed to understand it more. So that's what led me into nutrition. But then I started to spiral down that rabbit hole of, this food does that. And this is going to sound gross, but I used to work in the supplement industry too. I worked for a company called GNC. And every bit of research I'd read, oh, this supplement does that. I was taking so many supplements. I went to the washroom once, and this was a breaking point for me. I was passing through whole pills. These were caplets.
Wow.
Or capsules, I'm sorry. Like, these things should have digested easily. So my digestive system was just messed up. I was messed up. I was walking around with a pill box and taking these supplements after and before every meal, and it was just, right? And so that led me into more of the nutrition and training. So I started to lift weights and eat right, eat better. But then I got into the competitive aspect of it where, okay, I'm the master of my body. My body will do everything I tell it to do. And there was a broken relationship there. It wasn't a relationship. It was a dictatorship. So then I started bodybuilding, and I started to lose friends because I'd show up to dinner. They'd invite us to dinner. I'd have my Tupperware food, and, and it was very restrictive. And then it led me to overcompensate afterwards. There was my last show would have been 2009. In 10 days, I gained 35 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was I had pitting edema. It was just, it was bad. And I'm like, why?
Was that after a competition, like after dehydrating?
That was, yeah, that was after the extreme. But it was, it's extreme to get to that way. And it wasn't healthy. It was a control thing. And it became part of my identity. And my body was telling me, listen, I don't like this. I will go wherever you take me. But if I don't like it, I'm not going to stay there. And so you'd have this feast or famine response. This, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And I remember too, it was my last show. I didn't get on stage. I was in line to go on stage. So a couple of weeks before that, I was working in my nutritional clinic, and I was moving a big water bottle, and I was in the dehydration, depletion stage. My muscles, you look strong, but you're weak as a kitten. So I had one of those 18-liter jugs, and I was throwing it in the back of my truck, and it was going to slam down. So I kind of resisted a little bit, and I tore something in my shoulder, and I felt this heat and this pain. And then the bruising was down on my arm. And so I'd torn a rotator, not separated, but tore it really good. And it was only a few weeks out from the show, and I was committed to it. So a doctor friend of mine, warned me, you're just one, dehydration flex away from tearing that off. And then you can't, it's an optional surgery. It's a huge recovery. You're in a sling. Like, it's not a small thing. So, you're not going to be able to pick up your son at that point. I think Owen was maybe, he's 2 or 3. Like, he was young. And so I'm like, no, I'm committed to it. And then I remember on stage going out, line up, and seeing these people out there getting judged. It's a pageant. It's not a sport, right? There's no definitive, like, you cross the finish line, you lift the most weight, you jump the highest. It's really just, they judge you. And I'm like, I'm done. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I risking tearing my shoulder apart, not lifting my kids, and doing all this stuff for this? And I walked off the stage. And I think that contributed to my relapse afterwards, was just knowing that it's just not me anymore. And so I reverted back to what was familiar to me, which was, those fat cells are always there. They never go away. You shrink them, but they're always there. So that was my turning point. And from that point forward, I wanted to help people, wanted to get them out of that. So I started to work with people in competitions and tried to get them in there as healthy as possible. But then I was, again, seeing that I was just contributing to the problem, because, I just want to do this to say that I can. I just need a point to fix on. I have to lose weight. I have to get healthier. This is just a good. And then they do it, and they would do well because I would, help them. I want to do it again. And then, I need to do it because if I don't have a reason for it, then I'm just going to go back to my old ways. And I'm like, okay, I'm part of the problem here, right? The reason for you being healthy is everything, not one thing, right? It's a very finite mindset. If you do it for this, then that happens. There's no reason to do it anymore. Whereas if you do it because I want to look back at my life and I saw the things that I was able to do, like, it's an unlimited, a finite or infinite mindset. So I stepped away from that, stopped working with athletes, and just started working with everyday people. And then started to learn a little bit more about how I was the problem. And you've seen me along a lot of that journey. It's been a journey of self-discovery in where I can help you as opposed to I can teach you. I can give you answers. I can save you. I'm not a fireman anymore. And to me, saving a life is empowering one, not pulling them out of a burning wreck or preventing a heart disease for a couple months, or, like a heart issue or an acute issue over a couple months, buying them more time. It's teaching them how to amplify the time that they have, giving them a better quality of life, having better human connection, less of the energy and thought process going towards these overwhelming notions. And so that's where I am today. And I'm living proof of it. I'm a moderate in every sense.
In seeking out your education with regards to nutrition, did you find that the readily available research and information is adequate and accurate? Because I think of, like, the food pyramid.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what we know with regards to the food pyramid now is that it's kind of BS. Like, it's one of the worst things you could do if you actually followed it. So was that something you found, that the resources out there were just garbage?
We've used this term a lot in the conversation you and I have had so far. There's no nuance to any of it. That's the problem. At the end of the day, water, we need it to live. If I drank 12 liters of it today, I'd kill myself. It's not the food that's causing the problem, it's our use of it. So it's the individual. So at the end of the day, we need more people that can read individuals and ascertain their needs. It's a sales position. It's an art. Okay, nutrition's not a science. It's an art form. Right? What you put to your canvas, that's yours. That's yours. The paint, yeah, the paint matters. The canvas matters, right? But the artist matters, right? And we've neglected the artist.
That almost brings us back to the socialized medicine part of it, where we've got this sick care system as opposed to the healthcare system, where a lot of people, I think they're going down the route of things that could be fixed with nutrition and proper eating and dieting if it was to be caught and addressed soon enough. But so many people are not able to, or don't have access to. The number of people in New Brunswick without access to a family doctor is astounding. And so I think more and more we're seeing the added ramifications of the sick care system being messed up and not being able to have people have access to proper nutrition or nutrition education.
Exactly. Yeah, like incentivizing people to go see people like myself so that they can lighten the workload of these doctors, and the doctors are decreasing the things that they need to see, so they're back to treating people with breaks and fevers that won't go down, and these acute, we have an acute healthcare system. It's the best in the world, but it's not a chronic healthcare system. That's us. So we have to take more ownership of this, and we're not. We're blaming all kinds of other people, and we're waiting for things to get, let's get to the, divorce before we go see a counselor. Let's wait for bankruptcy before we go see a financial advisor. Let's wait until the acute stages. But if you're doing the same things as other people that have led, that have been down that road, then learn from them, ask the people coming back from it. What got you here? Oh shit, I'm going the same way. Okay. Right? I need to change my direction now. And it sounds too easy. Neil, it can't be that easy. It is. By making just little changes. You don't have to go and get a gym membership. Go for a walk. And in that walk, you calm yourself down. And then you don't have to eat the bag of chips because someone looked at you sideways earlier, or Donald Trump tweeted something that you didn't like. You talk yourself out of it, and then it's this cascading effect. And then you just get in the habit of it. But you don't have to it's not like Tony Robbins says, massive change. No, you're never going to get an acute, you're never going to get a chronic issue dealt with in acute response, right? If you and I don't get along, and it's been that way for a while, and I punch you out or you punch me out, it's a momentary fix. I'm quiet while I'm laid on my back, but then when I get up, I'm going to be even that much more pissed, and maybe even less direct, right? Ben can knock me out, so I'm going to wait till he's asleep, or I'm going to burn his house down, This is what we're dealing with here. We need to create nuance, and the only way to do that is through communication. Have someone that people can talk to so that they can learn what it is that they need, instead of, this is what you need, right? I'm here to help you learn what you need, the same way as I wish there was someone there for me, but there wasn't. There's a lot of people telling me what to do, but they weren't telling me why. Well, because that's what the research says, or that's what this says. And it wasn't working. Neil, you need to eat more. Get your calories up. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to get fat again. Well, you need to eat more. Well, what do I need to eat more? Well, here's the Canada Food Guide. And then I'd eat a bunch of breads and things like that, and just trigger me. It was just this whole figuring out. And I see this with individuals. So I treat the individual. I work with the individual. The food is it's a tool that we use to get, you've built things, right? No matter how good the screwdriver is, you're going to eventually need to put it down and pick up another tool. The screwdriver isn't going to build the entire home. It's just a tool. But we mistake the finger for the moon. We get so wrapped up in the tool that we refuse to put it down and see that, holy shit, we've got a toolbox here. I'm creating something. I'm not using a tool. I'm a tradesperson. I'm building something here. Yeah.
There's a lot of people who, I would say, eat healthy, regularly exercise, but still end up dealing with a lot of issues that have been coming up over the last number of years. And I question, and I wonder if you have an answer, is it to do with some of the pesticides, additives, preservatives in some of our food? Or are we seeing different issues come out because of that?
I can give you information on that. And this might, it'll give you a different perspective. Food is not healthy. Food is nutritious. So a lot of these people, they don't know what their bodies need. Okay? And I think that's really the big aspect, the big thing here is, I eat healthy, I eat salads. Well, my daughter was crapping whole lettuce through her digestive system because of where the inflammation was, where the lesions were. Her gut, her gastrointestinal system wasn't able to absorb that, wasn't able to break it down. So at that point, were vegetables good for her? No, right? If you had psoriasis, that wool sweater you have on, imagine putting that on covered with psoriasis or eczema. But Ben, that's a great sweater. It's great in the wintertime. It wicks, like it's phenomenal, but not for you because of the condition that you're dealing with. So at the end of the day, I think that's it. And then you start to see, you teach people value in certain foods, but also the balance of those foods. So they're not, believe it or not, I've had people come in and they're eating whole grain breads and miserable, rosacea, eczema, and they're very athletic. They needed carbohydrates. They needed enough carbohydrates to support their activity. They love being active. It was probably one of the contributing factors to keeping them on this side of the fence and not going totally, in breakdown mode. So I switched them over to white bread. Well, I can't eat white bread. It's not good for you. It's, promotes diabetes, same as potatoes and, the fear mongering. I'm like, you know what? Just try it. You love bread. It's convenient. It's affordable. You're a student, highly active. Just give it a go and just see what happens. So the only thing that she changed in her diet, she ate all of her fruits and vegetables and just went from whole grain breads, right? Mainstream whole grain breads, but still whole grain breads. And she started to incorporate the simple breakdown of white breads. And we started to see differences. She started to feel difference around 3 weeks into it. And then probably about 4 months, she noticed that the rosacea had cleared up by then, and she noticed that her seasonal psoriasis, like how it would come and go, how psoriasis or eczema has those periods where it's inflamed and then not. So her whole endothelial layer, right, started to heal itself. And she ate white bread. She ate a lot less of it, though. That's the thing. Because her body, there's something going on where the body could break it down and absorb it and got more from it than it did the stuff. It was malabsorbing and causing inflammation, right? So when your gut gets inflamed, it's like you being really mad at me and I'm trying to explain something to you and you're not even hearing me. All you're hearing is Charlie Brown teacher. So she was malabsorbing that. So she was effectively getting more from the bread, but the bread wasn't providing her with micronutrients. It was only a macronutrient thing. That's all. That's what was going on. So she was getting macronutrients into her body without inflaming the body. And that allowed the body now to absorb the other micronutrients from all the other good stuff that she was eating. And it created this collaborative thing where she felt guilty for eating white bread because white bread is associated to poor health. And she went one step further. Once she started to make that connection, she started to make her own white bread. She got rid of a whole bunch of other preservatives and stuff now. It was a game changer. And that, for me, I've learned more from my clients than I can ever learn from a book. It's like throwing someone into the trenches and saying, here, Neil, just go figure shit out, right? And that's what I've been doing.
So interesting to hear that kind of nuance because we don't often get opportunities to hear that or to talk about that, because you're right, it is very much black and white, where your white bread is bad for you, or this is bad, this is good for you, you need to have whole vegetables, or like you alluded to earlier, you need to have fresh uncooked carrots. Like maybe for your body, maybe for my body, but being able to suss out that nuance and understand.
There you go. have a sounding board. Yeah, I think it's so cool to sit there and say, okay, let's talk, right? And being able, the same way as you pull information out of people in your interviews, right? It broadens your perspective. And then I could probably venture to, I could easily put you in any population and you would have ways of connecting with them because of your vast experience and connection with people. That's the thing. Like, the body becomes more situationally aware. It becomes more adaptive to its environment, and it's able to pull things from foods and utilize the food. And then you start to understand what it is that you need. And then that becomes 80% of your diet. And then the other 20% is what it is you want. And the body allows that to happen. Buying something really nice for yourself isn't a problem if you can afford it. But if it pulls from other resources like your mortgage or, child's educational fund or whatever, you got a bit of a problem.
How much have you dealt with diets like, or restrictive diets like veganism, vegetarian? I know you said you were carnivore for a bit. I want so bad, just on a personal, emotional level, I want to dislike and say that vegans is super bad for you, but I have a feeling that it's not. I have no problem with people who are vegan by morality, that they don't like the idea of death or eating death, but then there's the people who just say that you are better off eating vegan. What is your thoughts?
That's a good one. So I was vegan for almost 2.5 years, just to experience it so I can relate to a lot of the clients. I felt fantastic, but again, I couldn't lift anything. Like, I wasn't who I was supposed to be. I just didn't feel, I felt healthy to a certain extent. But I didn't feel competent or capable in other areas that were important to me.
Did you rely on a lot of supplementation?
No, I didn't. And I think that might have been the problem. Whereas at the end of the day, the body needs what the body needs. How it's delivered to, whether it's through, carnivore, because in carnivore, you're not necessarily in ketosis. The body's converting through gluconeogenesis proteins into carbohydrates. So you're getting a low-level systemic intake of carbohydrates. It's just from a protein source, which can have its downsides, because once you teach the body how to use protein as a source of carbs, that protein source dries up. The carbohydrate demand does not. The body's going to be very, very good at feeding off itself. So at the end of the day, it still boils down to macronutrition, what it is that we're made of, whether it's from vegan sources, whether it's from plant-based sources, or whether it's from, omnivorous or meat sources. The body needs fats, carbohydrates, and proteins, and in proper proportion based on how you live your life. Someone who lifts weights, higher protein. Someone who's a runner, higher carbohydrates. Someone who has high stress but not active, more fats to support the central nervous system and cell structure. So again, it's really knowing how to allocate those resources. The same way when people live, say, you love farming and things like that. So a lot of your income would go back into farming. I'm not a farmer. I have a Harley Davidson. A lot of my income goes towards my Harley Davidson because it's always breaking down. But that's the thing. Say you and I make the same amount of money, right? You just allocate it differently, but you still have to pay your power bill. You still have, so it's really just kind of looking at it from a budgetary perspective and seeing it that way. And then nuanced with, what do I like to eat? What's my digestive system? What do I gravitate towards? So now you get into kind of the intuitive aspect of it. Okay, I'm not a big fan of meat, or where I live, I've got tons of vegetables and those types of things. I love making bread. I love the smell of bread. I digest it really good. It doesn't cause any inflammation. Then you're going to find yourself heading more towards that, but you still need the right amount of protein. If you lift weights, then you're going to need to supplement that protein, because you're not going to be able to take in enough food to give your body the requirement of protein that it needs in order to facilitate the breakdown and regrowth and development of muscle. So
that's the biggest thing that I've heard with regard, and it may be propaganda against the vegans or whatever, plant-based, but that you are inherently weaker because you just can't get enough of that protein.
You're not weaker, you're less muscular. Okay, so there's a difference. You can be incredibly strong. Like, my wife is incredibly strong for her size and her weight because of the way that she wired and fired her muscles. I've seen some incredibly strong, very slightly built people. again, but in terms of muscle density, yeah. I mean, these athletes that are vegan and are, they didn't get that way being vegan. You can support a muscle system, but you can't develop a muscle system that way. And that's my hypothesis. That's what I've drawn from the multiple, things that I've read and been privy to. You can develop a linebacker's physique or a wrestler's physique or a powerlifter's physique, but you with omnivorous behaviors. But then say you decide I'm going to be vegan, vegetarian, or plant-based. It may improve you still may be able to have strength gains, performance gains because of the lack of inflammation in your system or what have you. But when it comes to building that size, that muscle, no. I seriously doubt if you can get there that way, but you can sure as hell sustain it.
So would you say vegan or plant-based is inherently healthier in
No.
any way?
No. I know specific. It's healthier if it contributes to your health, right? If you feel better and all your biomarkers are better, then yes, that's healthier for you. But in terms of me saying there's a specific camp that is or isn't, it depends on the organism. That's where I stand now, is it's based on you. So financially, what's best for you? What causes less anxiety, stress at home? What's accessible? What can you get on a regular basis? There's no sense in driving your food in your health and putting your health in the hands of seasonal stuff or stuff that's way outside of your price range, right? So if you have access to meat, then your body will adapt to that. And if you digest it doesn't cause inflammation, you feel good, then there's something to that. So when it comes to the camps, at the end of the day, weight is all about calories in, calories out. So if you're in ketosis and you're losing weight, you're eating less calories. If you're vegan and you're losing weight, you're eating less calories. And the health benefits that you're experiencing aren't from the ketosis. They're not from the veganism. They're from the reduced calories. They're from the reduction of the size of your adipose tissue, reducing your adiposity.
So going to the opposite side of that, then carnivore diet. Mm-hmm. You went through it after your myocarditis, and yeah. What was your intentions going carnivore?
That's just treatment. That's all it is. It's a momentary thing. Same way as you would take a supplement or a medication temporarily, because the difference between poison and medicine is dosage. When you look at food as a tool, which is, a tool as a medicine, you use it appropriately. When I started to feel better, my body let me know, okay, let's get some real carbs back in here. The inflammation's down, everything's systems checking out. Let's get back to the gym. Let's fuel your muscles. Let's get some fruit and vegetables in there more. But what it does too is it kind of can reset your desire for them. So now all of a sudden, there might have been an offset or an imbalance there somewhere. So, things like fasting and stuff like that, people that fast,
Yeah, so I was going to ask, why carnivore versus fasting or not an elimination diet?
I don't know. Like for me, it was just personal preference. Like I don't know if fasting would have done any better.
Psychologically, you might have been more miserable. But
psychologically, I think my trepidation with fasting is my eating disorder. Okay. I've been working with the church quite a bit, and they promote fasting and things like that. And I've always been hesitant. So I'll fast in other areas because fasting is supposed to promote benefit. It's not a pissing contest to, or fit in with anybody. So I'll fast from social media. I'll fast from other aspects of my life that I feel aren't contributory towards me. So in that aspect, I feel like I just needed to simplify what my body was breaking down. And I know for certain that in terms of bioavailability, there's absolutely nothing better than meat. I mean, protein in general, for every 100 calories of protein you consume, your body burns 40 calories just utilizing it. It's that important that it's willing to go in, right? So it'd be like giving you a box with a gift in it, and that gift in there is something incredible. You'll take the effort to open the box, right? But if I give you a box and there isn't anything really important in it, you're like, oh yeah, I'll get to this. you know, or if it's hard to open, you'll be, right? But if I put a gold brick in a box with a chain, Ben's out getting a hatchet, right? Yeah, yeah. So that's
Meat is valuable.
meat is valuable. Like builds like, and I knew I needed to heal. I knew my organs were struggling, so meat just made sense to me. Yeah, and meat's the only thing. Like protein's the only thing. It's Proteus, right? The Latin word for primary first, right? So protein is what your body needs to heal. But I stopped exercising. I was sedentary. I let my body heal. So it wasn't distracted and I wasn't diverting resources. Yeah.
So when somebody is actively sick, is that what they should just let your body heal?
Yeah.
Because I think some people will be nervous of, okay, I'm trying to lose weight. I need to continue down this path. I need to still go to the gym. I need to.
I'll work through it. I'll take the medication and go to work and do this and do that. If COVID has taught us anything, it's stay the hell home, right? Like, it's okay. Stay at home. Be sick for a week. It'll save you 3 weeks from lagging, you know? So in terms of productivity, you're actually going to end up on the positive side of things. So you take, a 3-4 day hit, then you come back to work and you're full of piss and vinegar and you're ready to get back into it. My athletes are the same thing. One of the best things that can ever happen to an athlete is a non-career threatening injury. And then they're like, oh, I hate this. I'm so lazy. I'm like, you're not lazy. You're not doing anything. You're resting. Resting is a thing. And for some people, it's the hardest thing to do. So therefore, if I was your PT, your personal trainer, I would train you in this shit you didn't like to do, the stuff that was hard. I wouldn't, oh, I'm so strong in my legs. Can we train legs all the time, Neil? Yeah, sure. Turn you into a weeble wobble. Meanwhile, right? So it's just, again, thinking about things a little differently, going where the discomfort is, but understanding the difference between the discomfort of breakdown and the discomfort of growth, instead of looking at discomfort as something that's just bad. Yeah.
Yeah, we so constantly want to be distracted and want to. I think that's the age of social media. Yeah.
Avoid pain, avoid discomfort. And again, the negative connotation to discomfort, right? David Goggins talks about it, pick your side. Being unhealthy and overweight sucks. Being healthy, it's sucks. It's hard, but it's worth it. Whereas the other one, right? It's the heart of losing a limb versus the heart of having that limb sewn back on and rehabilitating it. Yep.
That's how I feel with regards to our food, because I want to have good food. I know the benefit of good home-raised food, and then being able to have that control of raising it ourselves and then sharing that. I'll give you some pork chops before we leave from our pig. Yeah. So meat for us has been one of the biggest things, because Nicole, when we met, was vegan. She had been vegan for 10 years. And so much so that we'd cook separate meals. She'd make me cook my hamburger, and she couldn't stand the smell of it at all. And she's really changed over the past couple of years, because metabolically she added that in to change her body, and she felt a lot better. And she changed psychologically, because even last year she was helping butcher chickens. It was crazy, the difference between when we first started dating. She wouldn't even touch meat. It was disgusting with the bare hands and the blood. And now being able to have an actual hand in that and have that respect. And that's the biggest thing for me is, you see all of these documentaries with regards to what these animals go through and the food system and how bad it is. And I will agree with most. I debated a vegan last year. I will agree with most people that the factory food system and our food system right now is garbage. Yes. It is bad. But the only active change that can happen in that is either you're going to make better choices by purchasing them, which we can't afford. Right. So I know that I have the time and ability to be able to grow our own garden and raise our own meat. And so that is what has been the biggest change for us, is okay, instead of going to the grocery store, can I grow it? Can I can it? Can I preserve? Can I hunt it? Yes. And then be able to consume those foods instead. And that has then changed our minds to see where we go with our food. Right. What do we, this time of year, we didn't grow a lot of squash, but this time of year we'd be eating squash and potatoes and those very calorie dense, heavy foods to get us through the winter.
In the winter months, the stuff that stores easily and burns slowly. And I think if more people took care of their own food, you'd have less overconsumption. And food wouldn't be an industry. When you go to countries where the food isn't part of their economy, you see healthier people. It's when food becomes a part of the economy, a huge part of the economy. Again, like billions of dollars is allocated towards how do we get you to eat our food and more of it, right? Look at everything. Look at the iPhone. Look at everything. You know, you need a new car every 2 years. You need an iPhone every 38 minutes. Or, you know, when you industrialize something, that's the problem, right? When you industrialize it for profit as opposed to benefit, it's very, very different. So, you know, you're getting food that I could only dream of getting because you've taken that hit on one end because of your prioritization of the other. And if we had more people like you strewn throughout communities, then it gives people that option without overwhelming the farmer as well. So we can have these smaller hobby farms and feed a certain demographic, a certain amount of people, with still augmentation from mainstream sources. But because of the quality of food, you're not over consuming. Again, the apple and the Timbit, right? You know, higher quality protein, more protein, accessible protein, higher quality vegetables and things like that. You'll find that people don't throw out a lot of those. Number one, because they value them more. The price should be a little bit more, right? I don't mind spending more on a food when I need less of the food. So at the end of the day, I actually end up spending less money because I'm not buying a bunch of fillers with it. It's very functional, very strategic. So again, this would roll so far in such a different direction if we just started something in the basics of it, got people healthier, got them less afraid of, you know, farming, like doing things themselves, less overwhelmed. Yeah, I think we're all overwhelmed right now. It's a paralysis by analysis. I can't do anything unless it's given to me, and I can't make anything of myself, so I have to be educated.
The internet has really overcomplicated that too, because I see that with regards to gardening all the time, where people will be scared to start because they're like, oh, I need to have a hugelkultur garden, I need to no-till, I need to be organic, I need to, and like, take seeds, throw it in the ground. Like a pack of seeds is $1.50 or $3 at the store in the spring. Buy them, throw them in the ground and try it. I had a friend last year who said they didn't want to grow tomatoes because they don't like tomatoes. I was like, that's fair. Tomatoes, especially store-bought tomatoes, are bitter, but tomatoes are real tomatoes are ones we grow are. Tomatoes are ketchup. Tomatoes are barbecue sauce. Tomatoes are spaghetti sauce. And you can see the wheels turning when I started to mention these things. It's just like, I know you don't like tomato sandwiches or just eating tomatoes. Like, sure, I can get that. But a tomato is in so many different things, and so many of the foods, in salsa, so when you start looking at a garden as more foods as opposed to just the raw ingredients, a lot of people will see it. I'm growing lettuce, I'm growing tomatoes. Okay, I'm growing a salad, basically. But the way I see it is we have a shelf or shelves filled with canned goods and preserves, and we've got jams, and we've got stuff frozen, and that's our year of food.
And those other things, they feed the animals too. So your leftover stuff, you're feeding the pigs. The pig's meat is going to taste fantastic. You're getting the micronutrients. You're eating a vegetarian. So I am vegetarian because I eat them, right? They've done all the filtering for me.
My animals actually eat more food from the grocery store than I do.
Okay.
Because we were part of a program, so I go this afternoon. We pick up boxes, any food that the grocery store would throw out on a regular basis. We're part of a program where we get some of that food. So we go to our grocery store on Mondays and we pick it up, and we get boxes upon boxes of stuff that would otherwise be thrown out. So we get veggies, and last week was a ton of nuts that got pulled off their shelf because it was expired. So they were eating cashews and almonds.
It'd be cool to see as the pigs are slaughtered if there's differences in like taste or size and weight, things like that.
I know a lot of people, for pigs specifically, in the fall, they'll give them apples to sweeten the meat. So I think there is a lot of different things that you can do and again, that comes back to, if you know what pork tastes like, then you can have good pork versus bad pork. But if you've never had high quality pork, then you're just going to be like, why would you care? And the same goes for any animal. I mean, chicken or beef, or we're even raising sheep and goats now. And so to have those different animals, and feeding them well, I mean, you can really tell the difference. I switched, goodness, over a decade now, from grocery store bought meat haven't looked back, been buying from a local butcher, a local farmer ever since. And it is a world of difference. I remember that first steak I had when my parents introduced me to it because I was starting to get sick. And they were like, oh, we bought from a local dairy farmer. He had his cow slaughtered. And I tried that steak and I was like, what did you season this with?
Yeah.
This is delicious. It was
Salt.
salt. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Salt and pepper. And I was like, I could have this literally every meal. These are so good. And since then, it's just been that growing and knowledge-based journey of figuring out, okay, what is good food? I mean, we've spoken on that. I interviewed you a couple years about that. Like, what is real food? And that's what I pick out of my garden on a regular basis.
Yeah. And real food is, in regards to that relationship with your needs, the body's it's going to identify that and make it so much clearer. When that happens, like, you'll know that I love carrots because there might, and you see it with pregnant women, they go through different stages, different trimesters, and they have an affinity towards or an aversion towards foods. That's the body telling the host that, okay, I need this because we're in this part of development, and I'm after the first trimester, the baby takes precedence, so now the body actually comes into control. The body's actually telling the mind what to do for the first time. And it's a brilliant thing to watch and see this woman eat crates of oranges. But meanwhile, I'm thinking that if she had better quality oranges, I wonder if she'd eat as many, because the body's trying to acquire a certain nutrient or enzyme or something. And because there's only 5% in each orange as opposed to 85% say in another type of orange, it has to eat, because the body doesn't pay attention to calories. It's looking for nutrition. So if you need protein, you're going to have to eat an awful lot of bread to get your protein. And that body, the remnants is going to get stored as body fat. It's going to be triglycerides. It's going to be stored in your blood and adipose tissue. Meanwhile, the body's sifting out the little bits of protein. And I always envision, because I'm a very visual learner, when they were, panning for gold, like all the rocks and stuff like that would just get thrown out to try and look for this little morsel of gold in the hours that they spend there. And that's kind of what the body's doing with this unconscious eating, but also too, the quality of the food has a big push towards that. If the food has more nutritional value, the probability of the body getting more nutrients from it goes up.
That's been the hardest thing to try to educate people on over the past couple of years, to talk about the quality difference, because somebody looks at a green pepper and you think a green pepper is a green pepper, but in reality, and there's been studies that have shown that a organically grown green pepper has 19 to 65% more nutrients, those micronutrients, than a store-grown one. Because store-grown ones are grown to be able to ship, and they go through distribution centers, and they're coming from God knows where. And so when you have one that, like, hey, this is going to go bad in 3 days, but that's because it's full of vitamin C, vitamin A, all of these.
It's living.
Yeah, exactly. All of these nutrients, plus, plus all of those bacteria and stuff that go along with it. Like, if you're grabbing it from the garden and it doesn't ship well, that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Because you're going to.
You, not good for the
Yeah, exactly. You know that it's going to, your body will utilize it, because if it's breaking down, and over the years, I mean, there's been plenty of people who've done you put McDonald's fries or something under glass,
3
and
years
then
later, you come back
it's
and,
the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Whereas, the difference then on a smaller scale of a green pepper, it will still go bad on a store shelf, but my green peppers might go bad quicker, which is actually something that we've noticed the opposite of with our cucumbers and other vegetables. Like, our cucumbers last because you could buy cucumbers at the grocery store, they last like a week in the fridge, and they go mushy and nasty. We had one last year, and even this year I just had to toss some to the pigs. They lasted like 3 months.
Really?
Like, ridiculous the amount of time that those cucumbers lasted. We forgot one on our counter last year, just got buried behind the coffee maker and different things, and found it like 3 months later, and was fine, firm. I opened it up, I tasted it, and I was like, wow, that's still a cucumber. Yeah. And I wonder how many other cultivars or vegetables are like that.
I wonder if the more water-dense ones would have that effect, because of the quality of nutrient within it, supporting it itself, as opposed to, like enzyme versus, because it's a very water, it's 86% water. There's a lot of B vitamins in it. The German troops used to use it to keep themselves alive on the front line. They'd see that they'd be able to stave off starvation for quite a while just by feeding cucumbers. Whereas our troops in the U.S., Canada, it was canned milk. Yeah, yeah. So they were feeding them cucumbers to stave off starvation, and they showed a huge uptick in vitality and the willingness to fight and what have you. That's after they got off all the methamphetamines and stuff. That's another story for another time.
That's really interesting though, because I've thought about that too. And then with regards to the microbiome, like we've got a microbiome inside and out of us,
Yeah.
but then on all of the foods that you eat, because we don't, in large part, wash our vegetables until we
Yes,
need them.
yes,
So do
yes.
they have that protective coating because they're not getting eaten by predators, like a
Yeah,
squirrel's not getting them or anything,
yeah,
but do they have whatever type of bacteria or fungus on them that is protecting that
yeah,
fruit?
yeah,
And I don't know that. I've never swabbed them or done a
yeah.
test on it, but I'd be interested to know, is that something that helps preserve them? Or is it, like you said, that sort of density in them, or just it's not something that bacteria or whatever
Yeah,
want to eat readily?
yeah. Yeah, it could be a number of things. It could be also the sprays that they're using to for industry standards. When they sell the mainstream cucumber, that could be degrading the actual structure of itself. So it might be what it's not getting versus what it is. Yeah, that's cool. But either way, like when you look at you living in the soil, sharing the microbiome of your environment and the food being grown in your environment, I mean, nothing about that sounds detrimental. You know what I mean? Like, think about us coming and colonizing New Brunswick, right? There'd be a lot of people dying in the beginning because they'd be eating mushrooms they didn't recognize, and it's a learning curve, right? But that's it, right? So again, the nutritional value of food is really, really important, but whether or not it is cohesive with the organism eating it, I think that that's something that we need to look at a little bit more in regards to before we ask, is this good? There needs to be kind of the whole kind of picture looked at. Is this good for this specific organism and their desires, their needs? And that can be determined in amount, but also quality. I think both of them are equally as important, and you can't have one without the other. I could give you $100 bill right now, freshly pressed, beautiful $100 bill, and you're like, this is great, Neil, but I need 10 more of them to pay the bills. So quantity does matter, but quality matters as well. Yeah.
That's why I've been really over the past couple of years looking into more indigenous medicine and practices, and like agriculture is a very European thing.
Yes, yes.
Like the natives here really had food forests and everything kind of worked together, and that's something that we've started to look into a lot too, because when you're sick, the biggest thing you're always told is vitamin C, vitamin C. Well, I learned that spruce tips or evergreen tips have way more vitamin C than an orange do. So we in the spring harvest our spruce. I mean, we're covered with spruce trees or fir trees. So all of our tips in the spring, I collect as many as possible, and then I make tea now. So throughout the year, that's what I use for, because we don't really buy oranges. If we can't grow it, it's very rare that we buy it.
Right.
And so learning more about those different things and those practices have been really valuable, as opposed to the monoculture agriculture that happens a lot in industry today. That's like, I'm going to grow a lot of cabbage, I'm going to grow a lot of whatever, whereas we are growing here with the land as opposed to against it. And I find that we produce better, not necessarily more, but we produce better, higher quality, and then knowing about different things that we can grow natively here, as opposed to stuff that we're importing from other countries, then allows us to rejuvenate our health without having to go to supplementation or go to buying oranges from the store for our vitamin C.
Right. Yeah, I see that. Yeah, with the First Nations, like I've worked with several groups, most of them off reserve, and it's incredible. Like it's very dose specific. Like they really, with the traditional medicines and things like that. First thing they do is, okay, well, these are your needs, and this is what we procure from nature in order to deal with those needs. It's not, here's, this doctor's known for this. You know what I mean? Here's giving you this. Same thing that I gave to 20 other people that came in through the door. So 3 people get healthy and the other 17 don't, or they have side effects from what it is that you're giving them. So it is very individually assessed. And I think and to go back to medicine in terms of doctoring, that's one of the biggest things. Like imagine 100 years ago, your doctor delivered you, maybe even, all right, but knew your parents, saw you frequently, like you walked in there and you were limping, they would know, Ben, what's going on? Like you're not yourself, or if your demeanor changed. But because of the mainstreaming of it, it's a file and not even a very well detailed one. And you're identified with your symptoms and pathology and still not very clear. There's no nuance to it. So again, like this is growing your own food and living in this environment. Like you're at the forefront of it. Like that's an incredible thing. It comes at it's a preference. It's a lifestyle preference. But to see the need for people like you, more of you strewn through communities so that I'm educating people into the value of that from a health perspective, that they're supporting you in that capacity and they're supporting themselves, and everything creates value. So now all of a sudden there's people contributing to the value of everything within that community, and community to community to community, because as we move to certain areas, the communities change, the needs change. You see it with different populations. People live in mountainous regions and people live in valley regions. Like they have different physiology, they have different nutritional needs. So it's looking at that again, going back to basics and just kind of asking the questions, interviewing the people, getting to learn things, as opposed to going in with this knowing attitude or going in with a one hook thing. Apple cider vinegar. Like Christmas is right around the corner, Ben, and you and I are going to be inundated with all these boutique things and all of these. Every year there's a new it. And if we keep chasing it, we'll never find ourselves.
I've been trying to keep an open mind lately, and even like I mentioned with regards to native medicine, or with regards to like last week I had a guy on who was talking about cannabis. And like my entire life I've been told that smoking is bad, drugs are bad, weed is a gateway drug. And so it was something that over the past couple of years, I even said during the interview, like my first introduction, like many people, was in college, where you smoke a joint and it's like, okay, that didn't do anything, I don't really feel it. And I still had in the back of my mind, like smoking causes lung cancer, is bad for you. And then doing more research into it, and I don't smoke, still don't, but consuming it in other ways and really trying to figure out, okay, this is a plant, there's got to be a way that, and same with mushrooms, psilocybin, like there are different ways to be able to utilize these things that we have been taught against.
Because of the stigma attached to it. Yeah. And it's everything in moderation, buddy. Like that's the thing. Like, smoking a marijuana, like smoking cannabis or consuming cannabis. It's it's how you're using it, right? Am I using it to numb? Am I using it to treat? Am I using it to celebrate? Like this is where I find a lot of the Europeans that I work with. It's like they consume alcohol, and boy, do they ever! But they don't consume it to escape. They consume it to celebrate, not to forget, but to amplify. So it helps them to moderate their dosages. Whereas I find here in New Brunswick, because of our malaise and the fact that we're just not happy, we're not fulfilled, binge drinking on the weekends, it's our escape. Our vacations, 2 weeks a year south, it's an escape. And I don't think people should be escaping from their lives. I think they should celebrate their lives by doing something different, but making themselves closer to who it is they are, what it is they do, and where they live. And I think that that's a big disconnect. So again, escape is the treatment, but it's not treating the cause, it's treating the symptoms. It's giving you a momentary reprieve. You're able to pretend you're someone you're not, or black out from the person you are. And then you have to reintroduce that person back into their life, versus a celebration or using the medicine like it's traditionally meant for. It's to hone you more. The sweat lodge, all this stuff. It's to connect you deeper, not separate you more. Yeah. And food is like that. People eat food to numb themselves. It's a diversion of pain. I hate who I am. My boss pissed me off today, so I'm going to eat. Now I'm so pissed off at eating and pissed off at myself that I've forgotten that I'm mad at the boss. It's self-injury.
The dangerous cycle to fall into, whether it is addiction of food or addiction of substances, is very easy to slip into that. And I think it's a result of our post-industrial sort of life. Like you mentioned, like we used to be able to have these decentralized pockets of, you had a community that had your butcher, your baker, your candlestick maker, you had your farmer, you had everybody in that community. Whereas now those pockets have really disseminated, and we've got the big city centers that are more focused on supporting the Walmarts and the Costcos, and you're supporting the big industrial complex to be able to make that run, as opposed to helping the community. Because you go to the grocery store now, and how many people do you know?
Right.
A handful at best. And so more and more, it's that cultural change that I am advocating for, and would really love to see change, where people know their neighbors and know where their food comes from and know why they're making those decisions, instead of making subconscious decisions that, like you said, you are coming home because you're mad at your boss. And well, maybe if you had a conversation with your boss instead of just being mad, or like being able to do those, like you mentioned earlier, be uncomfortable or be in pain for the gain, as opposed to just settling.
Yeah.
And that was something that I tried to learn, and what has kind of landed me here now in what we do is I didn't want to settle. I spent a lot of time learning from other people, observing other people. I lived in a bus for a time, and so I was just watching people constantly all across the country. And I saw a lot of people I didn't want to be like.
Right.
And I was like, I don't fit into a 9 to 5 well. I'm more of a creative person. I don't, like, where can I work into this? And I think more people need the opportunity. If we could really afford people the opportunity to explore and to,
Yeah.
because it's so valuable for somebody to be able to go down that rabbit hole and discover, hey, I'm more than just somebody that's going to work 9 to 5 or whatever, a shift work for on call with Rogers or Bell, or that is just, so many people are just paying the bills. And I guess to come full circle about your, with guaranteed basic income. If people were able to, okay, if you want to start a farm, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's figure that out. You want to, whatever, start a bakery. You want to do something, because I think people are inherently productive. They want to do things.
They're scared to fail.
Yeah, or they're using other excuses to be able to numb that potential pain or the existing pain.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's the lack of fulfillment. It's the emptiness. You got to fill it with something, and it's either going to be dirt, or it's going to be something that roots and becomes, it's either dirt or a tree, but the hole gets filled either way. So if you had, like we talked about before, incentivization, then there's still risk, but again, you can fail. You know what I mean? We're not letting people fail. People are afraid to fail, and they're made guilty for their failures, made to feel guilty. So it's always about the sure bet. It's always about the safe thing. Yeah. And that's a big problem. Yeah, that's a big problem these days, because, again, if there are more people like you, then there'd be more options at the grocery store. People would be aware of it more. I love the program that you're putting out and the content, and making it funny, and just, the shit you put on there, but it draws attention, and then you find, wow, okay, there's a deeper note here to it. And I think we need more of that going on, instead of makeup tutorials and how to do the proper bicep curl and how to avoid, grocery items based on, again, bullshit information and fine tuning and picking out little details. We're afraid of what we don't know. And right now we're only being told one side of it, and we need to see both sides before we find that middle. My father always said there's 3 sides to every story. There's yours, there's mine, and then there's the truth. And that's that truth. That's the nutritional truth too. It's, this food can do that. That food can do that. But these are on both sides. Like, this is here. That can do that, that can do that. But you've got all of this area in between where it does something that's totally unique to you. And if you can find that spot in between. So maybe me not, selling my house, moving out into nature and having a farm, maybe that's not my thing. But maybe growing tomatoes on the back deck is, you know what I mean? And maybe seeing the value in getting to know my local, local farmer with cows and chickens, and getting eggs and stuff from them, and maybe getting to the market more often on a Saturday and buying foods from there, the pork and the meat and the eggs and stuff, And then that getting so voluminous there that, oh wait, we need the market more than once a week. So other markets start to spring up. So it's takes time, right? Neil, I want to lose 20 pounds before I go south. I'm like, sorry, unless you're willing to lose a limb, it's not going to happen, right? It takes time. It took time for you to get 100 pounds overweight. It's going to take time for you not to be 100 pounds overweight. It took time for us to get away from the land. It's going to take time for us to go back. But we need to make it appealing, and we need to reduce the resistance between point A and point B. We have to make it possible for people, not overwhelming to them.
I couldn't agree more.